August 22, 1959, 12:47 a.m. Marcus Smooth Riley stood in the woods of Van Cortlandt Park in the Bronx, a shovel in his hands and sweat pouring down his face despite the cool night air. Three of Bumpy Johnson's enforcers surrounded him. Junie Bird with a .45 aimed at Marcus's spine, Chicago Red holding a kerosene lantern, and Nat Pettigrew leaning against an oak tree, smoking a cigarette like he had all the time in the world. Marcus had been digging for 43 minutes. The hole was now 4 feet deep. Everyone there, including Marcus, knew what came next. He'd betrayed Bumpy Johnson for $50,000 from the Genovese family, sold out the location of 3 policy banks, 2 shipment routes, and the names of 5 undercover cops on Bumpy's payroll. The smart money said Marcus would be in that hole by sunrise, covered with 6 feet of Bronx soil. But what Marcus Riley didn't know, what he couldn't have known as he drove that shovel into the dirt, was that Bumpy Johnson had known about the betrayal for 11 days, had watched Marcus collect the money, had let him spend $3,000 of it on a new Cadillac and a diamond ring for a woman who wasn't his wife. And now, Bumpy was about to teach Marcus, and every other man who worked for him, a lesson about loyalty that would echo through Harlem's underworld for the next 3 decades. This is the story of the longest night of Marcus Riley's life, and why sometimes the worst punishment isn't death. To understand what happened in those woods, you need to understand who Marcus Smooth Riley was to Bumpy Johnson. Marcus wasn't just an employee. He was family. They'd grown up together in Charleston, South Carolina, in the 1920s. Bumpy was 2 years older, but Marcus had always been the talker, the one who could charm his way into or out of anything. When Bumpy moved to Harlem in 1930, Marcus followed 6 months later with $12 in his pocket and a gift for reading people that made him invaluable. By 1959, Marcus was 47 years old and Bumpy's chief negotiator. He sat down with Italian mob bosses, Puerto Rican gang leaders, and dirty cops, and somehow walked away with deals that benefited everyone. He made $400 a week, more than most lawyers in Manhattan. Bumpy trusted him with everything, which made the betrayal so much worse. But to understand why Marcus sold out, you need to understand what was happening in Harlem in the summer of 1959. The Genovese crime family was making a push into Uptown. Vito Genovese himself was in federal prison, but his underboss, Tommy Ryan Eboli, was running operations from a social club on Sullivan Street. Eboli had his eyes on Harlem's policy racket, a $2 million a year operation, and he knew the only way to take it was to crack Bumpy's inner circle. So Eboli did what organized crime does best. He found the weakness. In Marcus's case, it was debt. Marcus had a gambling problem. Nothing dramatic, no single catastrophic night, just a slow bleed of money into poker games, horse races, and dice tables. By July 1959, he owed $18,000 to a bookmaker named Sal, the banker Lombardi, who worked for Eboli. On July 29th, Lombardi gave Marcus 2 options: pay the $18,000 by August 10th, or deliver information on Bumpy's operation and the debt disappears, plus $50,000 cash. Marcus thought about it for 3 days. On August 1st, he made his choice. Most men would have confessed to Bumpy immediately, would have asked for help, would have trusted the man who'd been like a brother for 30 years. But Marcus Riley wasn't most men. He was a coward. August 1st, 1959, 9:30 p.m. Marcus met Tommy Ryan Eboli at a diner on 116th Street and Pleasant Avenue, Italian East Harlem, neutral territory. Eboli wore a charcoal suit and gold cufflinks. 2 bodyguards sat in a booth behind him. "You ready to do business?" Eboli asked, stirring sugar into espresso. "I need guarantees," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "You get the $50,000 when we verify the information. Debt's forgiven today. You got my word. And Bumpy never finds out this came from me." Eboli smiled. "Cold. Reptilian. Marcus, if Bumpy finds out, you got bigger problems than me." Over the next hour, Marcus gave up everything. Bank locations, shipment schedules, the names of cops, routes, contacts, 30 years of trust, traded for $50,000 and a clean slate. What Marcus didn't know was that one of Eboli's bodyguards, a guy named Paulie Quintana, was actually on Bumpy's payroll, had been for 2 years. Paulie made a phone call at 11:15 p.m. that night. By midnight, Bumpy Johnson knew everything. August 2nd, 1959. 7:45 a.m. Bumpy sat in the back office of the Rhythm Club on 132nd Street, listening to Polly Cantana's report. Junie Bird, Chicago Red, and Nat Pettigrew sat around him in silence. When Polly finished, the room stayed quiet for a long time. How much they pay him? Bumpy finally asked. 50,000, plus wiping 18 in debt. Bumpy nodded slowly. He wore a navy blue suit and gold-rimmed glasses. At 52 years old, his hair was graying at the temples, but his eyes were sharp as ever. Marcus got the money yet. Picking it up today? 3 o'clock. Warehouse in Red Hook. Bumpy leaned back in his chair and lit a cigarette. The smoke curled toward the ceiling. Let him pick it up, Bumpy said quietly. Junie Bird leaned forward. Boss, he sold us out. We need to. I said let him pick it up. Bumpy's voice didn't rise, but everyone in the room felt it. Let him spend it. Let him think he got away with it. For how long? 3 weeks. Why 3 weeks? Bumpy looked at Junie like he was explaining math to a child. Because I want him to enjoy it. I want him to buy things. Take his girl out. Sleep good at night. I want him to believe he's smarter than me. That's when everyone in the room understood what Bumpy was doing. This wasn't about killing Marcus. This was about making an example that would last forever. For the next 20 days, Marcus Riley lived like a king. He picked up the $50,000 on August 2nd, cash in a leather briefcase. By August 5th, he bought a midnight blue Cadillac Eldorado with white leather interior. On August 8th, he bought a 2-carat diamond ring for a cocktail waitress named Diane who worked at Small's Paradise. He paid off his debt, bought new suits, ate at the best restaurants in Harlem. And the whole time, Bumpy's people watched. Every purchase, every dinner, every smile. On August 20th, Bumpy called a meeting. It's time, he said. August 21st, 1959. 10:15 p.m. Marcus was leaving Diane's apartment on Edgecombe Avenue when Junie Bird and Chicago Red stepped out of a Chrysler Imperial parked across the street. Marcus, Junie said calmly. Bumpy wants to see you. Marcus's stomach dropped, but he kept his face smooth. 30 years of talking had taught him how to lie. Right now? It's late. Right now. Marcus looked at Chicago Red, then back at Junie. Both men's faces were unreadable. All right, let me grab my coat. You won't need it. They drove in silence through Harlem, across the Harlem River, into the Bronx. Marcus tried to make small talk. Asked about business. About Bumpy's health. About the weather. Nobody answered. At 11:52 p.m., they pulled into Van Cortlandt Park and drove down a service road until the trees swallowed the city lights. When the car stopped, Nat Pettigrew was already there, leaning against a Buick, smoking. Junie opened the trunk. Inside was a shovel. Get out, Junie said. Marcus's hands started shaking. Junie, listen, if this is about get out. Marcus stepped out of the car. The August night was cool and damp. Crickets sang in the darkness. The smell of earth and rotting leaves filled the air. Chicago Red handed him the shovel. Start digging, Junie said, pulling a .45 from his waistband. Junie, please, I don't know what this is about, but you got 2 choices, Marcus. Dig, or I put a bullet in your knee and you dig anyway. Marcus took the shovel. His hands were trembling so badly he could barely grip the handle. Where? Nat pointed to a spot between 2 oak trees. Right there. 6 feet deep. 3 feet wide. Marcus looked at the 3 men. At the guns. At the darkness surrounding them. Then he started digging. August 22nd, 1959. 12:03 a.m. The first shovelful of dirt felt like lifting a building. Marcus dug in silence for 10 minutes. 20. 30. His dress shirt soaked through with sweat. His hands blistered. His back screamed. Why you doing this? Marcus finally gasped. Nobody answered. I've been loyal for 30 years. 30 years. Whatever somebody told you, it's a lie. Junie lit a cigarette. Keep digging. At 12:47 a.m., the hole was 4 feet deep. Marcus could barely lift the shovel anymore. His legs shook. His lungs burned. That's when he heard footsteps behind him. He turned. Bumpy Johnson emerged from the darkness, wearing a black overcoat and fedora. He walked slowly, deliberately, his cane tapping against the ground with each step. He stopped at the edge of the hole and looked down at Marcus. The forest went silent. Bumpy, Marcus whispered, tears streaming down his face. Bumpy, please, I can explain how much they pay you. Bumpy's voice was quiet, calm. terrifying in its control. Marcus's mouth opened, closed, opened again. I, I don't. $50,000, Marcus. Plus 18 in forgiven debt. That's 68,000 total. That sound about right. Marcus's knees buckled. He caught himself on the shovel. I was going to tell you. I swear to God, I was. You were going to tell me. Bumpy's voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. Before or after Tommy Ryan's people raided my banks. Before or after they arrested my cops. Before or after they killed my people. They weren't going to kill anyone. They just wanted the locations, they said. Bumpy nodded slowly. And you believe them. After 30 years with me, you believe them. The woods held its breath. How much of the 50 you got left? Bumpy asked. Marcus didn't answer. I asked you a question. 41,000. Where is it? Safety deposit box. Chase Bank on 125th. Bumpy nodded to Chicago Red, who wrote something in a small notebook. Here's what's going to happen, Bumpy said, his voice dropping even lower. You're going to keep digging. And when that hole is 6 feet deep, you're going to climb out. Then you're going to walk out of these woods, get on a bus, and leave New York. Tonight. Marcus blinked. What? You heard me. You're leaving. Going back to Charleston, or Atlanta, or hell for all I care. But you're never stepping foot in Harlem again. You're never using my name again. You're never speaking to anyone who works for me again. But why aren't you? That's when Marcus understood. Death would have been mercy. Because I want you to live, Marcus, Bumpy said, his voice colder than the night air. I want you to wake up every morning for the rest of your life and remember that you sold out your brother for $68,000. I want you to look at yourself in the mirror and know what you are. And most importantly, Bumpy leaned closer. I want every man in Harlem to know that Marcus Smooth Riley, my negotiator, my friend, my brother for 30 years, betrayed me and didn't even get the dignity of a bullet. I want them to know you're out there somewhere, alive, broke, and broken. Because that's worse than any grave. The room, the forest, the entire world seemed to stop breathing. That's what happens when you betray Bumpy Johnson. You don't die a legend. You die a coward. And you do it slowly, over years, knowing everyone knows what you did. Bumpy turned and walked back toward the cars. Finish digging, he said without looking back. Then get the hell out of my city. By dawn on August 22nd, Marcus Riley was on a Greyhound bus heading south. By noon, every policy runner, every banker, every soldier, every connected man in Harlem knew the story. Not because Bumpy told it, because Junie Bird, Chicago Red, and Nat Pettigrew told it. In barbershops, in bars, in back rooms and street corners. Bumpy made Marcus dig his own grave and didn't even kill him. Just sent him away like garbage. The story spread like wildfire. And the message was clear. Betray Bumpy Johnson, and you don't get the honor of death. You get exiled, erased, left alive to carry the shame. Tommy Ryan Aboli tried moving into Harlem 3 more times over the next 2 years. Each time, his people were met with unified resistance. Nobody would flip. Nobody would sell. Nobody wanted to be the next Marcus Riley. The $41,000 Marcus left behind, Bumpy gave it to Marcus's ex-wife and 3 kids. Quietly, anonymously. They never knew where it came from. Marcus Riley died in 1987 in a rooming house in Mobile, Alabama. Alone. Broke. Forgotten. He was 75 years old. In 30 years, he never set foot in New York again. Bumpy Johnson died in 1968, 9 years after that night, in Van Cortlandt Park. But the lesson he taught Marcus Riley outlived them both. There's a code in the streets. Always has been. Always will be. You can lose a fight and still have respect. You can go to prison and come home a legend. You can even die and be remembered as a soldier. But if you betray your people, you don't get a grave. You don't get a bullet. You don't even get a story. You just disappear. Most men think the worst thing that can happen is death. But Marcus Riley learned different. Real power isn't in the bullet. It's in making a man wish you'd pulled the trigger. Subscribe if you want to hear the stories they don't teach in history class. The real lessons from the streets where loyalty meant everything and betrayal cost more than your life. Hit that like button if you believe respect is earned and trust is sacred. Drop a comment. Would you have pulled the trigger, or would you have sent him away like Bumpy did? Next week, I'm breaking down the night Frank Matthews walked away from $20 million and disappeared forever, and why the feds are still looking for him 50 years later. Remember this: the deepest grave isn't in the ground. It's in living every day knowing you dug it yourself.